Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's Bible study session. It is indeed a privilege to be on with you today, and especially today being Mother's Day. We just want to extend a special greeting to all the mothers throughout the world. The world would never be the same without you. Homes would never be the same without mothers. I thank God every day for my own mother. I have good memories of Mama, and I'm sure that what you are doing today, you are building memories for your children and grandchildren, memories and character that will last beyond you. And I just salute you. I just pray the blessing of God over your life as you take on, as only mothers can do, a tremendous responsibility that has been given to you by the Lord Jesus. So well done, mothers. Keep on doing what only you can do. All right, so we are going to continue our study. We are on to Genesis chapter 33. Before we start our in-depth look at the chapter, we are first going to read. And I just want you, I'm going to be starting over in chapter 32, the last two verses, and we continue into chapter 33. I want us to maintain the flow, right? And that's the reason why we're going to be doing that today. So let's jump over to Genesis chapter 32, verses 31 and 32, and begin our reading. After 2. 1, 2. And as he passed over Peniel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel eat not of the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh, unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh in the sinew that shrank. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel and unto the two handmaids. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. And he passed over before them, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted up his eyes, and saw the woman and the children, and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, The children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also with her children came near, and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. Verse 12. And he said, Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee. And he said unto him, My Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds with young are with me. And if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly, according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure, until I come unto my Lord, unto Seir. And Esau said, Let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, What needeth it? let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. Verse 16, so Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him an house, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padan Aram, and pitched his tent before the city. Verse 19, and he bought a parcel of a field where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Amor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar and called it Elohi Israel. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the reading of Genesis chapter 33. Now we are going to flesh out the chapter in detail. Now there is a reason why I went back to chapter 32, the last two verses, because I believe it has a bearing on this chapter. Right? Now, so let's go back over there. Remember, we are not just reading as an academic exercise. We want to look for the patterns. We want to look for the clues. We want to find the big picture verses. We want to look for those seemingly insignificant verses that hold the underpinning for the activities. Now, remember, we have been learning to listen to the voice of the speaker, right? And when I say listen to the voice of the speaker, we want to look at the scenario that is presented and get an idea of the emotion that is being expressed by the person. So we look for the scenarios, and we could say, you know, they were angry at the time, or, oh, it was, you know, a calm moment, or a moment of fear. And then that gives us an idea of the meaning of words that are used, right? So far we see that Jacob was in distress. So he was panicky, he was, you know, pulling out, as we would say, pulling out his hair out of his head, wondering what to do when he came across Esau, because he heard that Esau was coming with 400 men, and he was convinced that he was coming for no good reason, right? He was coming for business. And he heard maybe that they had spears and knives. And last week we said, in our time, we talk about M16s and AR-15 and Glock with extended magazine and all kind of things, right? And so that's the kind of atmosphere we have here. But things changed. Remember, we read last week that he had this encounter with the angel, right? And he wrestled with that angel, and the angel said, let me go. And in wrestling with the angel hit him in his thigh, right? And he said he would not let go of the angel even with that, because as far as he was concerned, if God did not help him, his brother is going to kill him. So whether his brother killed him in the morning or the angel killed him right there on the spot, dead is dead. He would be dead anyway. So he says, you either bless me or kill me. That's pretty much what was happening there, right? You either bless me or kill me. If I allow you to go, my brother is going to kill me. And, you know, you are threatening me with all of this bodily harm. Well, either bless me or kill me, but I'm not letting you go. So here now, the Bible tells us that he got this hit in the thigh. All of this is important because it places a bearing on what is coming, right? From the Bible mentioned that he got a hit. Look for its importance, right? So the Bible tells us in verse 31 that as Jacob passed over Peniel, right, he halted upon his thigh. So notice how things have changed. So when he's walking and limping now, right, and he's going back, and Leah and Rachel and Zilpah and Bilhah sees their husband coming. That's not how they left him walking last night, right? What do you think happened? And his sons, everybody run and say, want daddy, want daddy. Rachel, run, come. Honey, what's wrong with your leg? Yet the dynamics have changed. He has a different walk now, and he's coming, right? Now, we might look on that as a handicap, but this is his game changer that God gave him. This is the blessing that God gave him, right? How does it play in? Let us look. Let us look at how this played in. So when we get over into chapter 33, this now is where everybody come around him, asking him about the leg. He tells them when he looks up and he sees Esau, he can't give them the story at the moment. So he says, maybe he says, I'm just using my imagination here. Maybe he says to them, all right, later we talk about this. Right now, I can't talk about it because Esau is coming. And he you know, sets them up. Now, remember what we saw earlier. Remember how the place got the name Mahanaim? Because he had divided the company. But here we see where he has brought them back together, right? He brings them back together, and now he puts them by their house. So he puts Bilhah and Zilpah and their children at the front. Then he puts Leah and her children second, and then he puts Rachel and Joseph at the back, right? Again, just as some persons have pointed out, it seems to be some amount of favoritism, and put those who would be thought of as least important up front. Because remember, these wives, Bilhah and Zilpah, they were just handmaids, right? They were concubines. How they became concubines? Because his wives, right? His wives gave them to him, right? Maybe under normal circumstances, he would not have taken them as wives, but his wives brought them to him, and so they became his wives, right? So their social standing was not all that up there. So he put them first, all right? Now, he goes ahead of them, right? Remember, he goes ahead of them, and I want you to look at how they are positioned here. So he passes over ahead of them, right? Because in this case now, Passover is the same word that is used for like he crossed over the river, or whether he goes on ahead, which is what he did here. He went on ahead of them. So the Bible tells us here that that's what he did. So even though he has Zilpah and Bilhah and their children at the front, he is in front of them. So if anything, he is going to face the danger, right? Now, we have no clue about the mindset of Esau. But remember, these are brothers, regardless of what they has transpired over, you know, the deception and the stealing of the birthright and the blessing and all of this. They are brothers, right? So here now, let us keep them our minds in the moment, the scenario. So here now, Jacob is going ahead to meet his brother, but he is walking different. This is not how his brother is used to seeing him. His brother was used to seeing him running up and down, and they used to play football and scrimmage and climb tree and all kind of things. And now he sees his brother coming, and he's walking and he's limping, and quite possibly he's in pain because it's not yesterday him get his joint thrown out. It's just recently. So he's in pain, and maybe his face, every time he makes a move, his face is showing, you know, pain and so on. And I believe that this is what hit Esau. Esau saw his brother and his heart melted. Couldn't believe his brother this. All right? how could he fight his brother? He was sorry. I believe, this is what I believe. I believe he was sorry for him, and that's why he ran to him. When he saw his brother and he went down, and every time he got up, he could see the pain on his face, and he's limping and coming. This was not how, even if the last time he saw his brother was when he took away everything from him and sent him off to go make his way. He left him walking. And maybe he's wondering, I wonder if something happened to him while he was going after I took away everything. And, you know, this happened to him and so on. So there could be a lot of things happening. But I believe when he saw him, right? So God gave him that limb. That would have been what would have changed everything for him. Because when his brother saw him, he said, no, oh, my brother, what is wrong with your leg? And he ran and hugged him and kissed him. And they wept, right? We don't know the conversations that took place there. But as I said, I believe that it is this limping that has changed everything. Now, it is important in the dynamics of things. That is why it is mentioned, right? There are many things, other things that could have been included, but they weren't, because they were not the important events in the time to fulfill the purpose of God. So here, God used the limb to change things for Jacob. This is my my belief, right? So now that he sees him, runs, kisses him, and they have cried, and you know, oh, what's wrong with your leg? And it's, oh, talk about that later. And oh, how are you? Long time no see. Look at your beard. You're getting gray, man. You're turning an old man. And they laugh and whatever. Now, I want us to remember these men are not strangers. They are brothers. They grew up at least for 63 years together in the same house, even after Esau got married at the age of 40. He was still hanging around, because remember, he was looking to inherit from his father, so he was there learning the business. He was helping his father every day, because he figured that when daddy goes, he is going to get everything, right? So they were there together. They were there together. Now, let us continue looking at this. Verse 5. So here Esau now, after they have cried for a time, Esau lifts up his head, you know, and looks, and he saw the woman and children, and he said, hey, who are these that are with you? And of course, Jacob now, you know, he realizes that, because remember now the mood changed, right? The atmosphere has changed. There isn't any animosity now, right? So the tension is coming down. The tension has reduced, right? So so you can imagine now that he is smiling and he's gesturing, and the old hymn and how they used to relate to each other, the things that they would be able to laugh about, and how they would have their discussion, all of this would now be an opportunity to come in. And I want you to think about it in the same context as how you would relate to your own brother or sister whom you have not seen for a long while, right? How do you relate to them after seeing them? You're glad to see them, and they come in. I say, Lord, girl, you're not getting no taller, or you know, you look good, man, and whatever. And just that, almost like there was no lapse in time, right? Almost like there were no lapse in time. So let us come back now to where we are. Verse 5, the last part of verse 5. And Jacob said to him, the children, these are the children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Verse 6. Then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also with her children came near and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph, near, and Rachel. Notice how things have changed. All right. Let's jump back up to verses 1 and 2. Leah and Rachel, right, and the two handmaidens. So first, handmaidens and their children. Notice, handmaidens and their children. Leah and her children. Rachel and her children. But when it comes to who is presented, how they are presented to Esau, we have the handmaidens and their children. We have Leah and her children. And then we don't have Rachel and Joseph. We have Joseph and Rachel. Right? You see what has happened? His father automatically has promoted him above his brothers. This is what we are seeing written in the scripture when it tells us about Joseph, near, and Rachel. Right? He's promoted. He is being introduced before his mother, who is the beloved. That means if anything happens to dad, is really him going in. Even though at this time, Reuben had not done anything. But it's Joseph who was being promoted. Right? So when we see, remember, one of the things we have to look at when we are reading the Bible is the order in which things are presented, because they tell us the priority or the ranking that each item or event holds. So for example, a very quick one, if we go to Genesis 1 verse 1, the Bible tells us, in beginning God created the heaven and the earth. Right? So we know that the first thing, priority, is God. God is before all. And then the order in which things were created was the heaven and then the earth. Right? And remember, there are different heavens, because one heaven was created after the earth, and that is the one, the heaven in which we have our sun and moon and stars. But before that, there was a heaven created, which is where God dwells. So when we talk about going to heaven, we're not talking about going to where the sun and the moon and the stars are. We are talking about going to the dwelling place of God. That's heaven. That is the one that was created first. It is not accounted for in the creation story, because in Earth's creation story, but we are just told that in the big picture, God, and then God did this, and then at some point along the continuum of eternity, he made the earth. All right? So we have to remember those kinds of priority. So when we see the how things have changed here in the order in which they are presented, the handmaidens and their children remain the same. Leah and her children remain the same. But when it comes to mentioning Joseph now being presented to Esau, right, who is the one from which the birthright was taken, it is not his mother and then him. It is him who is made to be presented before Esau. Right? Because remember, who is he taking? Who was the thing taken away from? Esau. Right? So after Jacob, it will still not be going back to Esau. It will be going to Joseph. All right, so let's continue. And he said, what meanest thou? So this is now verse 8, and we are back to where Esau is now talking. And Esau said, what meanest thou by all this drove which I met? Because remember, Jacob had sent the drove with the big sacrificial offering ahead of him, with the how many cattle and the she-goat and the ram and the camels and all kinds of things, right? So he said, what do you mean by all this drove which I met? And he said, these are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. Now, if we are following the the scenario here, right? When he says it is to find grace or favor in the sight of my Lord, you can imagine is almost like in my mind's eye, right? Looking at the scenario, following what I'm seeing here. Jacob is happy to see his brother. His brother is happy to see him. They are now talking. Who is this? What do you mean by that? You know, it's almost as if he's saying, oh, you know, I just sent it out to soft side of you. Right? Because remember, it is now not a adversarial conversation they're having. Right? They're not conversing as adversaries now. They are having a discussion. They are talking now as brothers who haven't seen each other for a long time. So he's pretty much telling him, boy, I'd sent them already out to the soft side to calm you down a bit. Because when I heard, boy, that they were coming with 400 men, I didn't know what to expect. So I say, you know what? Let me just try soften him up, you know. And they're laughing, right? You have to put these things in there. We can't be all, you know, that serious. We have to think about what was really happening here, listening to the voice of the speakers, trying to see what the scenario was as it unfolded. So verse 9, and Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself. Right? So you say, I'm all right, man. Everything is good. You can keep that. So there's this light atmosphere there. Now, verse 10, right? Verse 10 is very, very interesting. Remember, we are talking about all that went on because we want to be able to understand what we are seeing as we go ahead. Now, verse 10, Jacob says, nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Now, the structure of this part that is highlighted is not very clear. Right? How it is worded is not very clear. But if we are following from where we are coming, it is easy to understand. It becomes easier, put it that way, to understand what is being said here. Right? Now, what I believe is being said here, Jacob said, no, you have to take it. I'm putting it into Jamaican parlance now. Right? And I'm imagining now, let's say this is me and my brother Dougie. Right? And I haven't seen Dougie in a long while. And I, did Dougie some wrong. And when I see Dougie not so not upset with me, I'm still walking, have my foot in a sling or not really in a sling, in a cast, and on the crutches. And he said, boy, I want your leg, man. And I said, boy, life, and yeah, we laugh, and we are there, right? I know that this would be how me and my brother would be talking. And when he asked me about, so who's cattle I see out the front, I would say, boy, say, send it to kind of just bribe you in a car. We don't say it vexed me, I would laugh, right? As brothers, I'm telling you, this is all what would happen between me and my little brother. We would laugh. We laugh about it, right? And then now, if he says to me, no, man, I have enough. It's all right. This now would be my response, which is now verse 10, right? So I'm telling you what my response would be to my brother because I know my brother, right? My brother has a very good sense of humor. It's just so we stay, we laugh. And when my mother was up and about and she would reunite with her siblings after years, it's just how they just, like, time has never passed between them, right? And I know that this is how it would be. So this is my response to my brother now. And this is what I wanted to understand is happening here. He says, no, you have to take it, man. If you forgive me, you have to take it. Because, man, the way I was stressing, I thought when I came and when I see you right now, it would be like me standing before God being judged. But look at it now. When I see you, you're smiling so brightly, beaming. I couldn't ask for better. You have to take it. Right? This is the context of verse 10. Jacob was saying to his brother, no, man, you have to take it. You know what I went through in order to come up with coming up to give you the gift? How I was stressing and thinking that when I saw you, it would be like standing before God in the judgment. That is what he's talking here. Right? For therefore I have seen thy face as though I had seen the face of God. Not now. He's talking about the night before in the mental anguish and distress that he was going through. He was saying, no, last night what I went through, I thought that when I saw you, it would be like standing before God on the judgment day. Right? But know what he says. Now I see your face. You were pleased with me. Couldn't want no better yet. Take the gift. Take it. Right? I was willing to give it before. Now when I see you with this big, bright, beaming smile, you have to take it. Right? I believe that that is the context of verse 10 and how it can be interpreted. So it says, take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him. All right? So no, man, you have to take it, man. You have to. No, Esau, you have to take it, man. You know what I went through? How I stressed out last night? What I went through? No, you have to take it, man. And he urged him, the Bible says, and he took it. So verse 12 says, and he said, which is Esau, let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee. And he said unto him, my Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds with young are with me. And if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. Now, what do we understand from verse 13 mainly? Esau offered to go ahead of him, meaning that he wanted to provide safe passage, right? Maybe they had dangerous criminals in the area, you know, bands of robbers marauding, robbers and things who would, you know, attack travelers. And so he offered to give them security going, and he rejected it, right? But remember, he also knows his brother. He's not new to Esau. And he presents a scenario here, and he says, my Lord knoweth that the children are tender. What does that mean? What do you think that means? The children are tender, and the flocks and herds with young are with me. He presents two groups there. The tender children and the pregnant cattle, and those who have young ones. What do you understand here? Children are tender to me.
Basically, to me, it's that they're young children or they're sheltered. They're not they're not exposed to hard living. So even though they might be different age, but they were young and not accustomed to hard life.
All right. Anybody else? Children are tender. The flocks and herds with young are with me. And if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. All right, let's look at the wording. When we look at the wording here, well, let's get into what the words that are used here. So the word that is used for in the text is R-A-K-K-I-M, right? And it's translated to tender. And the root word from which tender is derived is transliterated to R-A-K, and it is pronounced rak, rak. meaning tender, which is literally or figuratively, and by implication, weak, faint or faint-hearted, or soft. Right? What does that mean? The children are tender. If we recall, we had looked at their ages, and the ages of these boys at the time, they were ranging in age from Reuben being about 20, could be a little more than 20, to Joseph, being 6. Right? So the brothers were in between here. What does it mean, tender? Now, notice what his focus was on. His focus was not on the tenderness of the children. He made mention that his children, his sons, are tender. But his concern was for the flock. Right? Flocks and herds with young. And if men should overdrive them, the flocks and herds with young, one day all of them will die. So what is the idea here? I believe what he's saying is that his sons, he's saying to Esau, you know my sons are inexperienced. All right? They are learning, but they are inexperienced. They don't have the understanding how to drive cattle. Right? Because if they overdrive them one day, gonna kill off all of them. Right? So he now also is looking back at Esau, because Esau is a man that is just Esau, right? Esau rough, right? Esau is a rough man, and so he would just setting the pace, and he's telling him, no, I can't follow you, because if we don't know what we are doing with all this flock and thing that we have here, none of it will ever reach anywhere. Right? None will get to anywhere, because my sons are inexperienced in driving cattle. Remember, all they were doing so far, was just to tend the sheep. The sheep would, well, let's not say the sheep, the cattle. They would be in a pasture, and maybe they would move them from here to there. There would be no hurry. So they wouldn't be really moving them along like they are taking them to market, right, over this long distance. They never had that experience. And this is what Jacob was telling them. My sons are inexperienced. They're soft when it comes to driving cattle. And if we are not careful, they'll kill off everything. So what I'm going to do, you go on ahead, and I will lead on softly. In other words, the word that he's using here is L-E-I-T-T-I, or at my leisure, right? And the word from which leisure comes, the root word, is transliterated to A-T, and it is pronounced at, right? And it means gently or softly. So I will go on gently. I'll just take my time going according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure. All right? So however the cattle can go, and my sons are able to drive them safely, that's the pace we will be going until I come unto my Lord, unto Seir. All right? So in other words, we could think of him as telling him, you go on ahead. I will come and visit you in Seir. Right? It's not that he is leaving where he is there now, going to Seir. Right? He's not going to Seir. The Bible tells us already where he's heading. He is heading to his father in Canaan. Right? That's where he's heading. He's heading to his father. And so he tells his brother, children, my sons are not experienced in driving cattle, and if they overdrive them for one day, all of them are going to die. So you go ahead, I will follow at a pace that I can control things and make sure my sons don't kill off the cattle, right, until we come. So you go on, I'll come look for you. We'll come visit you. We'll come and spend some time with you over in Seir, right? And I think we're going to take it there for tonight. Are there any questions?